And we're live. Hey, everyone. It's nice to have you back at the Partnermatrix program. We are really glad to have you here, and glad that we get to do these every week or every month. So welcome. Today we have actually a really exciting guest. We've got Mark Brigman from Partnernomics, and we're so excited to talk to him. He's a great guy, has a really cool company. And before we talk strategy, more than anything, I want to give Mark just a minute to chat a little bit about his business, tell the audience what it's about and what he does. So let's get started. Mark, here we go.
I appreciate
what do you
that. Vaughn, Akash, it's great to be with you guys again, and thanks for the opportunity. So Partnernomics, we started the company almost 10 years ago now. It seems so hard to believe it's been that long, but like a lot of us in the partnering profession, we say, man, this is hard. And so I started my career in the late 90s at Sprint at their world headquarters, and quickly found my way into partnerships. At that time, I'd been to college for 6 years, bachelor's and master's in economics, and I cannot ever remember one professor using the P word, partnership, in those 6 years. So I was like, man, how do we do these things? And I was building teams and starting to lead Sprint TV at that time, which the goal was to be the largest mobile television product in the world. And it's like, man, how do we do this partnering thing? And it's like, Mark, you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. Just, whenever you make mistakes, just make them once. I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. And so I started to build out the methodology just as a way to have my teams be more predictable. There's more process into it. We got to know kind of what we're doing. And whenever somebody takes off for leave, for vacation, whatever the case may be, we kind of know where they're at to pick up and continue on. And then I drank a little bit of bourbon one night and decided to get into a PhD program as if I didn't have enough to do. Wow. And really focused in and totally geeked out on partnerships. And it has literally changed my life. And so that's kind of what we're doing, is just, working with organizations to try to help them, learn what we call the science of partnering.
That's cool. I just for everyone's purposes, the way that I got introduced to Mark, it was really funny. I ended up spending a fair amount of time on LinkedIn, just interacting with folks and whatnot. And at one point a while back, a few years ago, I started looking around at educational things that kind of existed in partnerships, and all these people were posting up that they'd gotten these certifications from Partnernomics. And I was like, what the heck is that? And started tracking it down. And so when we started building out partnerships at Mindmatrix, Mark was one of the ones that we were pretty interested in. Mark, tell us a little bit about your educational offering and your certifications, because I think those certifications and partnerships are really unique.
Yeah, they are. So we started, really early on, and it really started Partnernomics as more of an education, more of kind of like this methodology sort of company, to be able to share, our programs, the methodology, kind of the step-by-step process of tools. And I wanted to have a certification in that, but I wanted it to be, kind of accredited or backed by an educational institution. And so we went through a 3-year process working with a regional university to have it accredited. It was a very painful process, but I think a really good process. And it's great whenever folks go through our courses now. We get a lot of compliments of just how structured it is. And it positioned us well. There's actually 6 different campuses across the world, university campuses across the world, that use our curriculum as part of MBA programs. So I think we still have a long ways to go to get partnership education and methodology and best practices into universities. But maybe some of the work that we've done is a small step in that direction. But yeah, we've had hundreds of people across the globe. As a matter of fact, over 80 different countries that have earned certifications through Partnernomics, through the various courses that we have. And for folks that complete a 3-course sequence, we have SPLP, Strategic Partner Leadership Professional, that certification. And it's a way, and I think this is going to continue to be more and more important as we move into the future of having sort of this third party body that's bringing some validation that somebody, not that any of us have all the answers, but somebody's been through a rigorous process to at least understand a framework and some tools. And so they're not kind of starting at ground zero whenever they step into a program, either as an individual contributor or as an executive leader.
That's so funny because I had seen that SPLP acronym, had no stinking idea what that meant at all. So I have just learned something completely new right here on the spot live. That's amazing. And it's funny because a lot of us do, little certifications here and there. I mean, Mindmatrix has a Partner Marketing University certification that we're really proud of. But this one is straight up through the universities, and that's a big differentiator compared to some of the other certifications that exist in the market.
Yeah, it was quite the process to work with the university, and then just even going through the full testing process, and even like the SPLP certification is actually done on the university's system and proctored that way. So I think it does, just adds an additional level of rigor for folks to go through, and and hopefully put some more meaning and some more power behind the certification whenever it's earned.
Wow, that's super cool. So as you've built out these training modules and you've started to have to construct all of this and really put meat on the bones, thoughts together on partnerships and strategy and things like that. What are some of the key components or the building blocks that really make up a clear and focused and concise partner strategy? What have you learned?
Yeah, I think like some of the main things, and we hear about these a lot, but specifically in partnership strategies, the thing that we must have as a step one is the C-suite not only has to buy in, but they really need to be the cheerleader and the leader of this, of what that strategy is. And so it's not like we can build our partnership strategy and then try to push it upwards, which actually happens, I would say, the majority of the time. What needs to happen, first of all, is to have an organizational level, a corporate strategy. And then partnering is a tool or a component or a piece of that. So really the partnership strategy is not a standalone strategy, but it's really born out of and it supports the larger corporate strategy. And that's probably the biggest mistake that I see, is that it's a lot oftentimes kind of built in a silo and then tried to push, be pushed upstream. As we know, that does not work.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I've often told people that one of the best things they can do for their partner programs is to get to know the CFO as fast as you can, and get them on your side. But what you're saying is it's far better to actually have the CFO and the CRO already on side, so you're not having to convince them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's also this misnomer. Well, I'll just generally say that's been our experience in the hundreds of companies that we've consulted with and worked with, that, we understand that the sales team, the sales role, that it needs investment, it needs education, it needs process, it needs technology, it needs these things. And we just know it. There's a line item budget in there. Go ask the CFO. But for partnership, somehow, we're supposed to come in and do this at little to no cost. And so one of the first things that we do is, in helping to build out a strategy, is really talking about the investments that are required in people, process, and technology to make partnerships be successful. Without the investment, it's not going to happen.
So in a previous life, I used to help build partner programs and partner strategy and things like that. And we were constantly looking to try to build unique frameworks and things like that for these organizations that we were working with, and they were enterprise technology companies generally. This sounds like that you've got a pretty good framework or a pretty good straw man for what that looked like. You said people, process, and technology. Was that what does that framework or that straw man look like for you? Is it something that you do for others, or is it something that they can go and track down online, or what would you suggest to folks?
Yeah, so both. There's a lot kind of even going back to like my background. So I've spent time in the Marines. I'm an economist, so I'm an efficiency freak. I'm one of those people that love process, unlike probably the average person. But something that really made an impression upon my career is the last 3 years that I was at Sprint. I helped run a $5 billion strategic partnership with Ericsson.
Wow.
Billion with a B. And it was really interesting because we worked with a couple of, the huge global systems integrators. And so as you can imagine, all these processes come in, literally over 6,000 employees were a part of this. And man, I just got this inside seat to watch this really complex partnership play out and to see from a process perspective what that looked like. And so I'm just kind of taking mental notes of, what works and what doesn't. As you can imagine, there's a lot of stuff that worked well, and there's a lot of things that did not. And so, whenever I started Partnernomics, started working with companies, and I thought about strategy is one of those things that it comes in at different layers. There's not a strategy, there's different layers to it. And so I think one of the biggest things that's missed is really having that overarching organizational strategy. We call it an OPP, or an organizational partnering plan. But that's what we had just kind of talked about before, is how the corporate growth plan connects to partnerships and what the expectations and the intended outcomes comes from partnerships. The second layer of that now being with the individual partnering programs. What different programs do you want to run? We've actually identified 16 different partnership programs that are, at our disposal to use. If you think of referrals, affiliates, co-selling, the lane of channel programs, now marketplaces is becoming huge. Each one of those needs its own specific plan. We call that an SPP, a strategic partnering plan. And then going below that is the individual partnership plans for those individual partners that your relationship warrants that, right? If you have hundreds or you have thousands of partners, a lot of those partners, and maybe even most of them, won't have specific plans. But certainly for the more strategic or more high collaboration partnerships, you certainly should build those out as well. But yeah, we have a component, a 12 component plan. I'd mentioned it: OPP, organizational partnering plan, SPP, strategic partnering plans, but a 12 component framework that we encourage people to use, and totally be happy to share that with folks as well.
Wow. So in addition to the educational offering that you have, you're doing a fair amount of consulting on people's partner strategy and inserting these plans basically operationalizing these plans into their businesses then.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So our core process or methodology has 6 different phases, starting with strategy, as you would imagine, right? Strategy, recruiting, contracting, onboarding, enablement, operations. But then we also have a network of certified Partnernomics orchestrators. And one of our teams that we work with, one of our orchestrator groups, Collab to Grow, that's their entire business, is working with organizations really on strategy and building out organizational partnering plans and strategic partnering plans for them. If you don't get the base right, if you don't get the foundation of the home built correctly, it's going to be impossible to build upon that. Yeah. And so, by following a framework, and I'm sure there's others that are out there, but like, say, for example, our OPP, or organizational partnering plan framework, it really just forces a lot of conversations and discussions that oftentimes don't happen. Vaughn, you had mentioned, you built out different partnering programs inside of organizations. There's lots of times we go in and have that 30, 60-minute whiteboarding session. We all have our notes, And then it's like, okay, go execute. But we're huge believers in actually having a formalized document that we're building, and even having it on, shared access, so people can access that, see it, update it. We encourage them to be living, breathing documents that that grow and expand over time. As we collect more information, it needs to be put into those organizational partnering plans, strategic partnering plans. But having the framework and literally having dozens of questions that need to be answered, it forces a lot of those uncomfortable conversations to be had, so that you can get the clarity, focus, and alignment that is what you want out of a great strategy.
Yeah, that boy, I wish I'd known of you earlier. That those living, breathing documents were always a challenge, and though I tried to templatize them as much as I could, it was a lot of work.
A ton of
Okay,
work.
yeah, I know Akash has some significant questions here, but I'm gonna ask one more before I let him kind of just chime in here. You mentioned recruiting, and it's one of the hardest things in the industry, right? And it's for so many different reasons. If you're sitting on top of the world, if you're a company like Sprint, it's probably a little easier. If you're coming into partnerships and you're trying to get your first view, and you're proud of your technology, but nobody knows about you, it's a heck of a lot harder. When I'm a strong advocate of ideal partner profiles, right? Like setting those profiles, and really going after what the thing is, whatever that is for your company that can move the needle the most. Can you talk a little bit about how you suggest people recruit their partners, particularly the ones that are coming into partnerships and that are spinning up these frameworks and these programs, and having to start that out at the very beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's recruiting, as you know, is one of the most critical components of a program, because if you don't do it well and don't do it efficiently, you're just adding weight
Mhm.
that's going to crush you. And so I think
It's going to crush you.
it will
There's
crush you.
there's the soundbite for the entire call. It's going to crush you. Anyway, crack on.
So it starts with the strategy. And to your point, Vaughn, it's getting really clear in your ideal partner persona. And getting clear on your ideal partner persona actually starts with understanding your customer
Mm.
and your ideal customer, and then who's there. So if we really kind of back this up and think, like, why do we partner in the first place? Well, it's because your partner has some sort of a competitive advantage in reaching your customer. Let's say in the case of sales or revenue focused partnerships, right? There's lots of different types of partnerships. Partnerships fall on a continuum. Some aren't concerned with sales, most are. Those
Mm.
that are concerned with sales, the reason that we partner is because we can leverage the capabilities, the assets, the relationships of other organizations, and they have what's called a cost advantage as to what we do. So getting really clear on like who to partner with, what that looks like, what those profiles look like. But then I think what we need to do is reverse the script. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is, so many times whenever we start the recruiting process, we lay out this Christmas list, this laundry list of, here's the 10 things that I'm looking for. Can you check all 10 of my boxes? If you can, I'll continue to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, what I encourage our clients to do is flip the script. Understand what your potential partner, your partner candidate, understand what are they looking for?
Hmm.
What's their value propositions? How can you help them? And what areas do you have a competitive advantage to help them? Because if the answer is you don't know or you don't, then you're setting yourself up for failure to work with them, to connect with them, to contract with them. You have to be able to provide value to them, and figure out how to do that first. And also, I call it leading the witness. If you lay out the laundry list of what it takes to get the job, if they want to partner with you because you have a bigger brand name, whatever the case is, they're going to recite your list to you. Um, don't lead the witness. Let
Ah,
them tell you what they're looking for. What's the strategy? What's the roadmap that they're on? And is that parallel to yours? Will you be able to provide value to them as you go into the relationship? And if you know that you can't, be honest with yourself. A lot of times we need to compromise, but in recruiting, I say don't compromise. It's better to have no deal than a bad deal. I don't want a huge stack of partnership
Yeah.
contracts of partners that aren't providing the value. I mean, there's so many times. I mean, I've seen statistics cited as high as 95% of quote unquote partners that aren't providing value. But I think another one of the big things that's missed is understand the value that your partners want and don't assume that you know. Especially in, like, say, SaaS based partnerships or even service based partnerships, most of them really don't care about your commission or your
ah,
spiff or those things, right? They want to sell their stuff. They want to
right.
make their money. They want to help feed their engine. And so they're not really interested necessarily in that X% commission that you can offer them. They want help in getting connection to prospects to be able to accelerate the sales for them. So be really clear on what they're looking for and make sure that you can deliver that.
That's a unique insight that I've not heard from a lot of people. Actually, I really liked that. Akash, you've experienced this firsthand. So why don't you ask? What questions do you have for Mark? Let's go there.
So I think while listening to both of you, it occurred to me that when 90% of today's business leaders are expecting to form new partnerships in order to drive their business growth, right? So my question to you, Mark, is what are some of the negotiation strategy that you suggest that vendors can factor in while designing and or crafting their partnership agreements, which should go beyond just the money factor? So what's your thought?
Yeah, so there's a lot in here, and there's so many different components that come in here. The first thing that comes to my mind, and a tool that I've loved using, obviously when it's a fit, is for exclusivity. Exclusivity is kind of an interesting thing that that I like to encourage people to think about, at least for periods of time or for unique opportunities, maybe for data usage, maybe for collaborations.
Yeah.
But give partners as much incentive as you can to double down on you and to give you their effort, give you their energy. Um, they have choices as well,
Yeah.
and they're going to go to the path of least resistance. Set yourself up for success and figure out how you can give your partners exactly what they want, but you obviously have to do it under business terms that make sense for you. But it kind of goes back to what we had chatted about earlier from the recruiting perspective. Really dig deep and understand, what are they looking for? What are they trying to do? What's their strategic roadmap? And figure out what you can provide to them. So many times, like in negotiation, we have a super cool course on negotiation, but something that's really interesting that I find very interesting in negotiations is so many times we see information as power, so we hold this information tight to our chest. Well, how can we expect our partners to provide maximum value to us unless we tell them, unless we lay it out for them and let them know, exactly what we're looking for?
Agree.
And, so yeah, I'm a huge believer in, like, whenever it comes to, negotiating, putting deals out there, spend more time in discovery and really dig deep to understand all of the different value points that are out there that we can provide to each other. Because I think the vast majority of partnerships that we put in place, we just scratched the surface. We're really just doing transactional stuff, and in the real scope of the value that we can provide to each other.
Agree. I think I loved your earlier points that put the customer as a focal point while designing or crafting your partnership strategy or agreement, for instance.
Yeah, that's good. Now, when they're working through this process, what are some of the challenges that you see most often, and how do you overcome them?
Specifically with contracting.
Well, just in forming the partnerships in the first place, you identify the partner, they're interested in you, you're interested in them. You kind of decide that the match might be good. That's just the starting point. What are some of those challenges that you're going to face, and how do you kind of address them as you're moving through that process?
Yeah, so true, Vaughn. And what what we have encouraged our clients to do and saw a huge lift from this is, and it goes back to the strategy piece, right? We said there's three different layers to it. There's kind of the overarching organizational level, there's the individual program level or partnership program level of putting strategies in place. And then we also need to put strategies in place at the individual partnership level. And so a certain subset of our partners, we're going to see them as having some truly strategic opportunities there. What we often see companies do is, they have these conversations, they do the courting, right? They put the contract in place. Now they say, okay, what the heck are we going to do? Now let's figure out the execution plan, right? That we're going to
Yeah.
step forward. No, we say back that up. And actually, as a part of call it the recruiting and contracting phases, build out what we call a 90-day plan.
Mm.
Let's build out exactly like, what are my roles and responsibilities? What value am I providing to you? What does that cadence look like? What is your value coming to us? Like literally, how often are we going to meet? And what are the goals and what are the milestones? What are the overarching pieces that we want to achieve? How do we define success? Make it binary. Yes, no.
True.
How can we claim success? And then also, what are some of those different activities that we can do together? Maybe it's a webinar like this, or some other advertisements, or we're going to, going to a conference together where we're going to work together. But I like to set up those agreements and those relationships and the expectations so that the day the deal's signed, now you're starting to execute. You're not going back saying, okay, now what the heck are we going to do together? And that's quite a bit different than what's typically done in relationships.
Yeah, I think that mistake gets made quite often. We're running out of time. Akash, what final questions do you got for Mark?
I think the last one would be quite easier one to answer that. So to you, Mark, what are some of the future trends that you're looking at that vendors should take into consideration while designing their partnership strategy right from the outset?
Yeah, great questions there. So again, I'll go back to people, process, technology. I think that we're going to continue to see this maturation, hopefully, within the partnership space. Right? We saw it in sales decades ago. We saw marketing go through it. Now I think it's time for partnerships. But what I've seen from the senior executives, a lot of them come from the direct sales lane. They don't necessarily come from channel or come from partnerships. So there's kind of an education that needs to happen there as well. So I think we'll see more emphasis, hopefully more emphasis put on process, put on essentially what sales has, right? Sales, you have mandatory training, you have processes that you follow, you have your Sandler or you name it, whatever process that you follow. I think we'll see more of that. Another thing that I think we'll see as well on the technology side is more integrations and more need for companies to work together. This space is too wide for organizations to be everything to everyone. So I think we'll see some improvements on the technology side as well for data share.
Agree. Customer is looking for a solution, not just a product.
Amen. For sure.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here comes the hardest thing that I'm going to do this entire thing with you for this conversation. We've had a half an hour together. I love the idea of being able to tell a story in, I don't know, 5 words. So give me 3 bullet points that of 5 words or less that summarize your takeaways for this conversation. Told you it was going to be hard.
Get clarity, focus, and alignment.
Okay. There's number one, clarity, focus, and alignment. Or is that all three?
Corporate strategy first, partnership strategy supports that. And you have to have a common process. People,
Ooh, I love
process,
it.
technology.
Well done. Hey, there's some great nuggets of information here in this meeting, in this webinar. So thank you, Mark. This was perfect. Exactly what we were looking
Thank you,
for.
guys.
And with that, we'll see you all next time on the Partner Matrix. And thanks for your time. And thanks again, Mark. Take care.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
We'll see
everyone.
y'all. Bye.